Mafia boss brings home his pregnant black maid. What he sees on her necklace freezes him cold. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. It was a typical evening in the luxurious mansion of Mafia boss Dominic Valentino, a man whose reputation for ruthlessness was as notorious as his empire was vast. The mansion, nestled on the outskirts of the city, reflected his power: marble floors, gold-trimmed furniture, and windows that seemed to touch the sky. Yet, within these grand walls, there was an unexpected visitor. His maid, Tasha, a young, pregnant woman who had worked for him for months, had always remained a quiet presence, her head down, her demeanor respectful. But today, something was different. As she stepped into the grand foyer, her swollen belly obvious beneath her faded dress, Dominic couldn't help but notice the change in her demeanor. She had always been a woman of few words, but today, there was something softer about her. Perhaps it was the way her hand cradled her growing belly, or perhaps it was the way her eyes lingered on the luxurious surroundings, as if she were trying to absorb it all. She had never belonged here, but in that moment, it seemed like she was trying to find her place. Dominic had always kept his distance. She was his maid, after all, and he was the Mafia boss. His world was one of power, fear, and control. But Tasha's presence had always intrigued him. There was something about her that made him wonder about the stories behind the eyes of those who worked for him. He never asked, though. His life didn't leave room for curiosity. Yet, today, as he stood at the base of the grand staircase, waiting for her to bring him a glass of whiskey, his thoughts betrayed him. Tasha walked toward him, her movements slower than usual, as if every step carried more weight than it had before. When she reached him, he took the glass from her hands, his eyes narrowing at the subtle change in her. He glanced down at her necklace, a simple piece of silver with a pendant that seemed to glow in the dim light. It was small, delicate, but something about it caught his attention. He paused for a moment, studying the pendant. A small, ornate heart, engraved with symbols he didn't recognize. The sight of it made something in his chest tighten, a feeling he couldn't explain. "What's that?" he asked, his voice low, almost a growl. Tasha flinched slightly, as if she hadn't expected him to notice, but she didn't look away. "It's a gift," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "From my mother." Dominic felt an unusual pang in his chest as he looked at the pendant again, something inside him stirring. The piece wasn't just a necklace. It was a symbol of love, of family, of a life far removed from his own world of violence and betrayal. For a brief moment, he wondered what it must be like to live in a world where love could be so simple, so pure. But then, the thought passed, and he returned to his usual cold, calculated self. "I see," he muttered, setting the glass down on the nearby table. But his gaze lingered on the necklace. There was more to this woman than he had ever given her credit for. He had always seen her as just another piece of his empire, someone to do the work, stay quiet, and never question his authority. But now, looking at her with that pendant hanging around her neck, he felt a flicker of something he hadn't expected. His mind raced as he tried to push the feeling away. He was in control here, not her. But for the first time in a long while, Dominic found himself unsure of the next move. "I never expected to be standing here in this grand mansion, holding a glass of wine for a man like Dominic Valentino. My life was supposed to be about surviving, nothing more. But now, as I stood there, trying to avoid his gaze, I realized that things were changing." Dominic's eyes lingered on the necklace, the delicate silver pendant that had been my mother's gift to me. I could feel his stare burning into me, and for a moment, I felt exposed. For months, I had kept my distance from him, just doing my job, staying invisible. But now, something was different. He had noticed. I wasn't just a maid anymore. I was someone he was starting to pay attention to, and that terrified me. As I stood in front of him, the weight of my growing belly pressing against my dress, I felt a sense of vulnerability I hadn't experienced before. I was just a maid. But in this moment, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be invisible anymore. Dominic's expression softened slightly, the usual coldness in his eyes replaced with something else. It was like a flicker of understanding. He took a step closer to me, his large frame looming over me. I could feel his presence, overwhelming yet strangely comforting. "I didn't realize it was a family heirloom," he said, his voice low, almost apologetic. I nodded, grateful that he didn't press the matter any further. "It was my mother's. She gave it to me when I left home. It's the only thing I have left of her." His gaze shifted to the necklace again, and then he looked at me with something that could almost be called sympathy. He was a man used to being in control, used to commanding respect and fear. But in this moment, he seemed unsure. "I didn't mean to pry," he said, his voice almost softer than usual. I felt a rush of emotions I wasn't prepared for. Sympathy was something I hadn't expected from him. I had only known him as the man who owned this house, the man who ruled with an iron fist. But now, seeing him like this, I was forced to reconsider everything I thought I knew about him. Was there more to him than just the Mafia boss? Or was I seeing something that wasn't really there? Before I could answer, Dominic's attention snapped back to me. His demeanor shifted back to the cold, calculating boss I was familiar with. "Go and get some rest. You've worked enough today," he ordered, his voice firm. I nodded, my heart still racing. There was something about the way he had looked at me, something that lingered in the air between us. As I turned to leave, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just witnessed something that could change everything. But I pushed the thought aside. I was just a maid. I had no place in his world. But as I walked down the hallway toward my small room, I couldn't help but think that maybe, just maybe, this man was more than the cold-hearted Mafia boss I had always known. Maybe there was room for something more here, something I couldn't quite understand. I just hoped I wasn't fooling myself. The sound of the heavy door behind me closing snapped me out of my thoughts. I had to focus. I had to remember who I was and what I was doing here. I couldn't afford to let my emotions get the best of me. I stepped into my small room and sat down on the bed, my hand instinctively reaching for the pendant around my neck. My mother's gift. She had always told me to hold on to what was important. But now, with Dominic's gaze still fresh in my mind, I wasn't sure what was important anymore. Was it my family, my past, or was it the strange connection I felt with this man, the one who ruled an empire of fear and power? The questions swirled in my mind, and for the first time, I wasn't sure of the answers. I just knew that my life was changing in ways I couldn't explain, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for it. I had always kept my distance from Dominic. He was the Mafia boss, and I was just a maid, pregnant and trying to survive. But things were changing, and I wasn't sure if it was for better or worse. The look he had given me earlier, as I stood before him, had lingered in my mind. There was something in his eyes, something I had never expected from him. It was as if, for just a moment, he saw me as more than just someone who cleaned his mansion. I couldn't shake that feeling. Maybe I was imagining it, maybe I was reading too much into it, but the way his gaze softened when he looked at the pendant around my neck, it meant something. I didn't want to admit it, but it meant something. The next few days passed in a blur. Dominic didn't speak to me much, but his presence was always there, looming, heavy, and constant. The house seemed quieter than usual. There was an odd tension in the air that I couldn't quite explain. It wasn't just me feeling it. I could sense the change in the staff, too, the way they seemed to look at me differently, as though they knew something was shifting. But what did that mean for me? What was I supposed to do with it? Then, one evening, it happened again. I was cleaning the large dining room when Dominic walked in, his footsteps echoing off the marble floors. I froze for a moment, unsure of what to do. My heart raced as I quickly wiped my hands on my apron and tried to appear busy. But he didn't leave. He simply stood there, watching me. "I see you've been working hard." His voice broke the silence, and it was the same low, commanding tone I had come to expect. I didn't respond right away. What could I say? Yes, I had been working hard. It was all I knew how to do. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to startle you," he continued, his voice softer this time, almost as if he were trying to reassure me. I nodded, unsure of what to say next. I could feel his eyes on me, but I couldn't look up. Not yet. Dominic walked closer, and for a moment, the distance between us felt smaller than it ever had before. He was standing right in front of me now, his towering figure intimidating, yet I felt a strange calmness wash over me. "I didn't realize it would be this difficult for you," he said, his eyes scanning my face. My confusion must have shown because he added, "I mean, the pregnancy. It must be hard. working here while carrying a child. But you've managed it well." His words were unexpected, and they threw me off balance. No one had ever spoken to me this way before, not in this house, not in this world of power and fear. I didn't know how to respond. "Thank you," was all I could manage to say, my voice quiet, almost timid. He didn't speak for a moment, just stood there, his eyes studying me with an intensity one hadn't felt before. Then, in an instant, his demeanor changed. The cold, calculating boss that I had known for months was back, the wall between us solid again. "I've had some business to attend to," he said curtly. "But I wanted you to know that you've done well. Keep up the good work." And with that, he turned and walked away. But this time, I wasn't sure if it was just a passing comment or something more. There was a strange undertone to his words, something that made me wonder if he was actually starting to care, or if I was just fooling myself. As I stood there, staring at the place where he had been, I felt a mix of emotions. Relief, confusion, and something else, something I wasn't ready to confront. Was I starting to matter to him? Or was I simply reading too much into his words? I tried to shake off the thought, but it lingered, hanging in the air like a heavy fog that refused to dissipate. For the first time, I wasn't sure if I was just a maid anymore. I wasn't sure if I was just another person in his world. Something had changed, and I didn't know what it meant for me, for my future, or for the child growing inside me. But I couldn't deny that a small part of me felt hopeful. A hope I didn't want to acknowledge, but couldn't ignore. Maybe, just maybe, Dominic Valentino was more than just a mafia boss. Maybe he was capable of more than I had ever believed. But I couldn't get ahead of myself. I had to focus on the present, on what I had to do to survive in this world of power and fear. My future, our future, was still uncertain, and I couldn't afford to lose sight of what was truly important. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed between Dominic and me. The way he looked at me, the words he spoke, it was as if he was beginning to see me, not just as a maid, but as someone more. But I didn't know how to process it. I had always kept my distance from him. He was the mafia boss, a powerful man who controlled everything around him with a cold, unyielding hand. I had my place in his world, and that place was as invisible as possible. But now, I wasn't so sure anymore. The way he had spoken to me, his expression softening when he looked at me, was something I had never seen from him before. It made me wonder if, just maybe, there was more to him than the ruthless man everyone feared. It had been a few days since that encounter, and nothing had changed in the mansion. I still cleaned the vast rooms, scrubbed the floors, and performed my duties without question. But each time I saw Dominic, I couldn't help but feel the weight of his gaze on me. It was as if he was always watching, waiting for something. I had become hyper-aware of his presence in the house. His footsteps in the hallway, the way his voice carried through the air, it all seemed to make the walls close in a little tighter. And yet, there was something strangely comforting about it. One afternoon, while I was folding laundry in the staff quarters, I heard the familiar sound of his footsteps outside the door. I froze. He had never come to the staff quarters before, never sought me out for anything other than the occasional task. But today was different. I didn't know why, but I felt this pull, this urge to know what he wanted. I stood up and quickly walked to the door, opening it just as he was about to knock. There he was, standing in the hallway, his usual dark suit making him look even more imposing than usual. But today, there was no coldness in his eyes. Instead, there was something else, something softer, almost tentative. "I need you to come with me," he said, his voice low and steady. "Where?" I asked, unsure of what he meant. "Just come with me. I'll explain later." I didn't question him. Instead, I followed him down the hallway, my heart pounding in my chest. As we walked through the grand corridors of the mansion, I couldn't help but wonder what this was about. Dominic was a man of few words, and when he spoke, it usually meant something important, something I should pay attention to. We reached the large dining room, and I was surprised to see that it was empty. Dominic led me to the far end of the room, near the tall windows that overlooked the sprawling estate. He turned to face me, his expression unreadable. "I've been thinking about you," he said, and his words caught me off guard. I blinked, unsure of how to respond. "What do you mean?" He took a deep breath, as if gathering his thoughts. "I've been watching you for a while now, and I've noticed how hard you work. But there's something else, something I've been missing." I felt a knot form in my stomach. What was he trying to say? "I've seen how you take care of things here. how you've taken care of yourself," he continued. "I know I haven't always been the kindest to you, but you've earned my respect." I stared at him, trying to process his words. Respect? From Dominic? I had never thought of him as someone who would respect me. I was just a maid, after all. But there he was, standing before me, saying things I never thought I'd hear. "I wanted to tell you." He paused, looking at me with a sincerity I had never seen before, "that you deserve more. You deserve better than this life. I'm willing to help you." Help me? My mind raced. What did he mean? "I've been thinking about the future," he said, his voice quieter now. "Your future. And I don't want you to feel trapped here, stuck in a role that doesn't honor who you really are." I didn't know what to say. I was completely taken aback. Was he offering me a way out? Did he want me to leave? "I don't expect you to make any decisions now," he added, as if reading my mind. "But I want you to know that you have options. You don't have to stay here if you don't want to. I can help you, give you the kind of life you deserve." The weight of his words hung in the air, and for a moment, I didn't know how to respond. My entire life, I had been surviving. I had never really thought about what I deserved. I had just done what I had to do. But now, standing here in front of Dominic, hearing him say these things, I felt a glimmer of hope that I hadn't allowed myself to feel before. "I don't know what to say," I finally whispered, my voice trembling. "You don't have to say anything," he replied, his gaze softening even more. "Just know that the door is open for you, whenever you're ready." I nodded slowly, still trying to wrap my mind around what he was offering. I had always been a survivor, but now, for the first time, I was starting to wonder if there was more to life than just surviving. Maybe, just maybe, Dominic was offering me a chance to live. As I stood there, the weight of his words pressing down on me, I realized that nothing would ever be the same again. Something had changed between us, something that couldn't be undone, and I wasn't sure what it meant yet, but for the first time, I felt like I had a choice. A choice I had never thought I would have. I could see a future now, a future that wasn't dictated by my past. A future where I could be more than just a maid. I stood in the large, opulent room, Dominic's words still echoing in my mind. "You deserve better." Better? I had never imagined anything more than the life I had, struggling day by day, just to survive, just to make sure my baby had everything he needed. But Dominic, with his unshakable authority and cold demeanor, had just opened a door I never thought possible. I didn't know what to make of it yet. Could I trust him? Could I allow myself to believe that someone like him, the Mafia boss, the man who ruled everything with an iron fist, could care about me? About my future? I wasn't sure, but for the first time, I didn't feel like I was invisible. And that scared me. In the following days, things felt different between us. Dominic was still the same. Powerful, unapproachable. But now, there was this strange tension between us, a pull I couldn't quite understand. He hadn't spoken to me much, but his gaze seemed to linger on me more than usual. It was as if he was waiting for something, waiting for me to make a decision. But how could I make a decision about something so life-changing, something so big, without fully understanding what it meant? I spent most of my days in the same routine, cleaning, cooking, trying to stay out of his way. But the truth was, I couldn't stop thinking about the conversation we'd had. Every time I saw him, that moment played over in my mind. What was he really offering? Was he offering me a way out of this life? Or was he just playing some game, like everything else in his world? I didn't know, and the uncertainty was eating at me. One evening, as I was washing dishes in the kitchen, I heard the sound of footsteps approaching. My heart skipped a beat as I turned to see Dominic standing in the doorway, his presence filling the room. He didn't say anything at first. He just stood there, watching me. For a moment, I thought I might say something, anything to break the silence, but the words didn't come. "Are you all right?" he finally asked, his voice soft, yet somehow still commanding. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. I was still processing everything that had happened between us, everything he had said. "You've been quiet," he added, taking a step closer. "Is there something on your mind?" I hesitated. Could I tell him? Could I admit the confusion and fear that had been swirling in my mind since our conversation? He had given me a choice, a chance to change everything, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to take it. "I don't know what to do," I said finally, my voice trembling. Dominic studied me for a moment, his eyes searching mine. "You don't have to decide everything right now, but I want you to know that you don't have to stay here if you don't want to. I'm offering you a way out. A chance to have a life where you don't have to worry about surviving every day. His words hit me like a punch to the stomach. A way out? A chance for a better life? But could I really take it? Could I really leave behind everything I knew, everything I had worked for, to step into an unknown future? You don't have to decide right now, Dominic repeated, his voice low and steady. But I want you to understand that there's a place for you in this world, outside of this house. If you want it. I looked at him, trying to process what he was saying. It felt like too much, too fast. My entire life had been about surviving, about doing whatever I could to get by. But now, Dominic was offering me something I had never even dreamed of, a chance at a different life, a life where I could have more than just the bare minimum. I don't know if I can leave, I whispered. I don't know if I can trust this. Dominic stepped closer, his eyes softening as he looked at me. I'm not asking you to trust me right away. I'm just giving you the option. It's up to you. I felt a wave of emotions crash over me. Fear, confusion, but also something else, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. Hope. Hope for a future I had never dared to imagine before. I need some time, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Dominic nodded, understanding. Take all the time you need. But just know that the door is open for you, whenever you're ready. As he turned to leave, I stood there, frozen in place, my mind racing. He was offering me a future, a chance at something better. But was I ready for it? Could I really leave behind everything I had known and start something new? I didn't know. But for the first time, I allowed myself to hope that maybe, just maybe, there was more for me out there than I had ever thought possible. I spent the next few days in a haze of confusion. Dominic's words replayed in my mind over and over, but I still couldn't make sense of them. A way out. A chance at something better. Was that really possible for me? I had spent my entire life just trying to survive. Could I really change everything now? The offer lingered in my mind like a temptation I wasn't sure I was strong enough to resist. The mansion felt different now, quieter, as if it were holding its breath, waiting for me to make a decision. I had always kept to myself, doing my job, staying out of the way. But now, every glance from Dominic, every word he spoke, felt loaded with meaning. It was as if he was waiting for me to choose. But how could I choose when I didn't even know what I was choosing between? The life I had always known, or the unknown future he was offering me. I spent more time alone in my room than I ever had before, my thoughts a whirlwind. I thought about my child, about the life I wanted to give him. I thought about my mother, who had always told me to never settle for less than I deserved. And I thought about Dominic, the man who had shown me kindness in a way I had never expected. But could I really trust him? Could I trust that this offer wasn't just another form of manipulation, another way to control me? I was still torn, unsure of what to do. But then, something unexpected happened. One evening, as I was cleaning the grand dining room, I heard the sound of footsteps approaching. At first, I thought it was just one of the staff, but when I turned around, I saw Dominic standing in the doorway, his gaze fixed on me. My heart skipped a beat. For a moment, neither of us spoke. I was caught in the weight of his stare, unable to move or look away. And then, finally, he spoke. I didn't think you would take me up on my offer, he said, his voice low and steady. There was a hint of something in his tone, something I couldn't quite place, but it made my heart race. I'm still thinking about it. I replied quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't know what to do. He took a step closer, his presence overwhelming. You don't have to decide right away. But I need you to know that I meant what I said. You don't have to stay here if you don't want to. I'm offering you a chance to change your life. And your child's life. His words hit me like a jolt. For a moment, I felt like I was drowning in them. A chance to change everything. A chance to give my child a life I had never dreamed was possible. But could I really take that chance? I don't know if I can trust you, I admitted, the words slipping out before I could stop them. Dominic's expression softened, just for a moment. It was fleeting, but I saw it. A crack in the armor, a glimpse of something I hadn't expected from him. I'm not asking you to trust me right away, he said. I'm asking you to trust yourself. This is about you. About what you want. What you deserve. His words resonated deep within me, like a truth I had always known but never allowed myself to believe. Did I deserve better? Did I deserve more than the life I had? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that Dominic wasn't just offering me an escape. He was offering me a choice I had never had before. I don't know if I'm ready, I whispered, my voice shaky with emotion. but I know I don't want to keep living like this. He nodded, as if he understood exactly what I was feeling. You don't have to be ready right now. Just know that the door is open for you, whenever you're ready to walk through it. And in that moment, I realized something. I wasn't just standing at a crossroads in my life. I was standing at the edge of a new beginning. A beginning that wasn't defined by fear, survival, or being invisible. It was a beginning defined by choice, by freedom, and by the hope of something more. Dominic's offer wasn't just about leaving the mansion, or leaving behind the life I had known. It was about stepping into a new version of myself, a version that could have the life I had always dreamed of for my child. And that thought, just the possibility of it, was enough to make my heart soar with hope. I still didn't know what the future held. I didn't know if I could truly trust Dominic, or if I could ever be ready to make such a huge change. But for the first time in my life, I felt like I had a chance. A chance at something better. A chance at a future I could build with my own hands. As Dominic turned to leave, he paused at the door and looked back at me. Take your time, he said softly. I'll be here when you're ready. And with that, he was gone. But his words stayed with me, echoing in my mind. I wasn't sure what I was ready for, but I knew one thing for certain. My life, and my child's life, was about to change forever. I woke up to the sound of birds chirping outside the window, the soft sunlight filtering through the curtains. It was a rare moment of peace, and I found myself holding my breath, not wanting to disrupt the calm. The events of the past few days had left me feeling disoriented, like I was standing on the edge of something huge, something that could change everything. Dominic's words echoed in my mind, offering me a future I had never even dared to imagine. I had never known a life outside of survival, a life where I could make my own choices, build my own destiny. But now, that future was within reach, and the uncertainty of it all was both exhilarating and terrifying. I couldn't deny the truth anymore. The life I had known, the one I had fought so hard to survive in, was no longer enough. I had spent my days trying to protect my baby, trying to make sure he had a future, but the life I was living didn't give me the tools to give him everything he deserved. It didn't give me the freedom to dream. And Dominic's offer, as unexpected as it was, had given me that chance, at least the possibility of it. As I stood in the kitchen that morning, staring at the coffee brewing on the counter, I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. The weight of the decision I had to make was heavy, but I knew I couldn't put it off any longer. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about my child, about the kind of future I wanted for him. Did I want to raise him in a world of fear and limitation, or could I find the courage to step into something new, something that promised more? I heard the familiar sound of footsteps behind me, and I turned to see Dominic standing in the doorway. His presence was commanding, even in the early morning light. There was no mistaking it. He was a man who was used to being in control. And yet, as he looked at me now, there was something different in his eyes. Something softer, almost vulnerable. You're up early, he said, his voice low, almost hesitant. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak at first. The decision I had been avoiding for so long felt so much closer now, and the weight of it threatened to overwhelm me. But I knew I couldn't keep avoiding it. I've been thinking, I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. About what you said. About the future you're offering. Dominic took a step forward, his expression unreadable. And I swallowed hard, my heart pounding in my chest. I'm not sure if I'm ready for it. I don't know if I can trust you. He nodded, his gaze steady. I understand. But I'm not asking you to trust me right now. I'm asking you to trust yourself. This is your life, your future. I'm offering you the chance to take control of it. His words hit me harder than I expected. Could I really trust myself to make this decision? Could I really take control of my life, of my child's future? It was a question I had never asked myself before, and the answer felt so elusive. But looking at Dominic now, standing there with his quiet confidence, I realized something. Maybe I had been waiting for permission all along, to allow myself to believe I could have more, to believe that I deserved more. I don't know what the future holds, I said, my voice shaking with emotion. But I know I can't keep living like this. For the first time, I feel like I have a choice. Dominic's eyes softened, and for a moment, I saw the man behind the Mafia boss. Then take it. Take the chance. I stood there, caught between the past and the future, between fear and hope. The decision was mine to make. And as much as it terrified me, I knew I had to make it. For me, for my baby, for the life I had always dreamed of but never thought possible. Dominic reached out, his hand resting gently on my arm. You don't have to make the choice today, but when you're ready, I'll be here. I nodded, feeling a strange sense of calm settle over me. The future was uncertain, but for the first time, I felt like I had the power to shape it. And that realization, more than anything else, gave me the strength to move forward. As Dominic turned to leave, I took a deep breath. I wasn't sure where this path would lead, but I knew it was the first step toward a new life. One where I wasn't just surviving, but living. And that was enough to give me hope. Enough to make me believe that, maybe, just maybe, there was more to life than I had ever dared to imagine. I had made my decision. The weight of it settled in my chest, heavy and real. Dominic had given me a choice, a chance for something more than what I had known. And now, I had to take it. But the path ahead wasn't clear. The fear of stepping into the unknown, of leaving behind the life I had built, still held me tight. But when I thought of my baby, of the future I wanted to give him, the fear started to feel a little smaller. I wasn't alone in this anymore. I had someone, Dominic. That night, after the conversation with him, I found it difficult to sleep. My mind raced, my heart raced. The stillness of the mansion only made everything feel more intense, like I was caught in a world where nothing was ever truly peaceful. I tossed and turned in the quiet of my room, the moonlight casting shadows through the curtains, but sleep didn't come easily. I could feel the pull of uncertainty, but I also knew that I couldn't stay in this place forever. I had to make my move. For my baby. For myself. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of clarity I hadn't felt in days. The decision was made. It was time to leave behind the life of invisibility I had known. It was time to step into the unknown, to take the chance that Dominic had given me. I couldn't keep doubting myself, couldn't keep wondering if I was making the right choice. My heart told me I was. It had to be the right choice. As I made my way to the kitchen that morning, my heart beating faster with each step, I found Dominic sitting at the table, his presence filling the space around him. He looked up when I entered, his eyes steady, waiting for something. I walked over to the counter, gathering my thoughts, trying to steady my breathing. I've made my decision, I said, my voice trembling with emotion. Dominic's eyes softened, and I saw the slightest hint of a smile tugging at the corners of his lips. And, he asked, his voice low, almost as if he was holding his breath too. I'm ready, I whispered. I'm ready to take that step. The silence that followed felt like a weight pressing down on both of us. But in that moment, it didn't feel like I was making a mistake. It felt like I was finally doing something right. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't just surviving. I was living. Dominic stood up slowly, his gaze never leaving mine. He took a step toward me, his presence once again overwhelming. I wasn't sure what to expect, but the warmth in his eyes surprised me. There was no coldness, no distance. Just something else, something that felt real. I'll help you, he said, his voice steady. I'll make sure you have everything you need. No matter what, you won't have to face this alone. I nodded, feeling tears well up in my eyes. I had never had anyone offer me something like this. Not in my life. But here he was, offering me a future, a chance to build something I had never believed possible. A life that wasn't dictated by fear, by the constant struggle for survival. I don't know how to thank you, I whispered. I don't know if I can ever repay you for this. You don't have to repay me, Dominic said quietly. This is about you, not about me. You deserve a chance, and I'm giving it to you. I wanted to say something else, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, I just stood there, feeling the weight of his promise settle into my bones. He was serious. He meant every word. Over the next few days, things began to change, and it wasn't just in the mansion. I could feel the shift in myself too. I wasn't just a maid anymore. I was someone who had the power to change her life. It felt overwhelming at times, like I was standing on the edge of something huge. But it also felt freeing. I wasn't stuck anymore. I wasn't invisible anymore. I was seen. Dominic kept his word. He made arrangements for me, helping me find a place to stay, and even offering to help with the basics. It was strange, the way he handled everything so seamlessly, like he had done it all before. But I couldn't focus on that. All I could think about was the future. My future. One evening, Dominic came to find me in the garden, the cool air brushing against my skin as I stood by the flowers. He didn't say anything at first, just stood there beside me, watching the sunset. Finally, he spoke. "You're making the right choice," he said. "I know it's hard, but you're stronger than you think. You've already made it this far. You can handle whatever comes next." I turned to him, surprised by the sincerity in his voice. "I'm scared," I admitted. "I don't know what I'm doing, but I know I can't keep living the way I have." "You don't have to be afraid," Dominic said, his gaze steady. "You have a choice now, and you're not alone in it." His words were a promise, and I held on to them tightly. Maybe, just maybe, I was finally stepping into a new chapter, one that was mine to write. I wasn't sure where it would take me, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going back to the life I had. I was ready to move forward, and I wasn't alone anymore. I could feel the weight of the decision I had made settling into my bones. It wasn't just about leaving the mansion. It was about leaving behind everything I had known, everything I had believed to be true. For so long, I had only focused on surviving, on keeping my head down and my heart locked away. But now, Dominic had offered me more than just a chance at a new life. He had given me a choice, one I had never thought I would have. The idea of stepping into a life that was not ruled by fear, one where I could have the freedom to choose my own path, was both terrifying and exhilarating. I spent the following days organizing my things, preparing for the unknown. It was harder than I thought. Every corner of the mansion held memories, some good, some painful, and the thought of leaving it all behind felt like a heavy burden. But with each step, I reminded myself of why I had made this choice. I wasn't just walking away from the life I had known. I was walking toward a future I could build, a future that I could choose for myself and my child. Dominic didn't push me to make a decision. He gave me space, letting me take my time. But every time I saw him, the weight of my decision grew heavier. There was a sense of urgency, a feeling that time was running out. I couldn't stay in limbo forever. I needed to decide. I needed to step forward. Then, one evening, as I stood in front of the large window in my room, watching the sun set over the city, I knew what I had to do. The light from the setting sun cast a warm glow over everything. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I saw a future that was bright. A future that wasn't just about surviving, but about living. I had spent so long living, in fear, in the shadows of my own life. But now, I was ready to step into the light. I wasn't sure what would happen next, but for the first time, I felt like I could breathe again. My baby deserved more than just a life of survival. We both deserved the chance to thrive. The next day, I made my way to Dominic's office. My heart was pounding in my chest as I approached the door. I knocked softly before stepping inside. He looked up from his desk, his expression unreadable, but there was something in his eyes, a softness, a warmth, that made my heart skip a beat. "I'm ready," I said, my voice steady but filled with emotion. "I'm ready to take that step." For a moment, there was silence. He just stared at me, as if weighing my words. And then, slowly, he stood up from his desk, walking around to stand in front of me. He didn't say anything at first, just looked at me with an intensity that made my chest tighten. "I didn't think you would," he finally said, his voice low. "But I'm glad you did." I nodded, my hands trembling slightly. "I'm not sure what happens next, but I know this is what I need." He reached out, his hand resting gently on my shoulder, his touch surprisingly comforting. "You're not alone in this," he said quietly. "I'll be here, every step of the way." I couldn't help but feel a surge of gratitude, mixed with a strange sense of relief. I had made the right choice. For the first time in my life, I wasn't just surviving. I was living. Dominic led me to the car that would take me to the place he had arranged for me. As we drove through the city, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of excitement and fear. Everything was changing, and I didn't know what to expect, but I knew that I was no longer just existing in the shadows. I was stepping into a future where I could finally breathe, where I could make choices for myself and for my child. We arrived at a small but comfortable apartment, far from the grandeur of the mansion but filled with potential. It was everything I needed and more. A place where I could start over, a place where I could be free. Dominic handed me the keys with a quiet smile, his eyes lingering on me. "You've taken the first step," he said. "Now it's up to you to build the rest of your life." As I walked into the apartment, I felt a wave of emotions wash over me. This was my new beginning, a chance at something better, a chance to finally live. And as I stood there, in the middle of this new space, I realized that the journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but it would be mine. And for the first time in a long time, I was ready for it. I had settled into my new life. It wasn't easy. It was a life I had never imagined for myself, but it was mine now. The apartment was small, but it was my own. The air felt different here, freer, lighter, even though every inch of my being still carried the weight of the past. I spent my days setting up the apartment, unpacking the few things I had brought with me, and trying to adjust to this new reality. The world outside felt so different from the mansion I had left behind. It was like stepping into a completely different life. There were moments when the silence felt deafening. I was alone in this new place, but it wasn't the same kind of loneliness I had known before. Before, I had always been invisible, just another worker in a world that didn't care about me. But now, I had my own space, my own choices. I could hear my thoughts clearer now, and while that was comforting in some ways, it also brought up the fear of what was to come. Was this truly the right decision? Was I ready for this? Dominic had kept his word. He checked in on me regularly, offering help when I needed it, giving me space when I didn't. His offers weren't just about material things. He wasn't trying to control me. He was trying to give me the freedom to choose my own future. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that he wasn't just offering me an escape from my old life. He was offering me the opportunity to create a life for myself, a life I had never thought I deserved. And that thought was both empowering and terrifying. One day, after I had finished unpacking, I decided to take a walk. I needed to clear my head, to make sense of everything that had happened. The streets of the city were bustling, filled with people living their everyday lives. I walked through the park, watching children play and people going about their routines. It was a world I had never been part of, but now it felt like a place where I could belong. As I sat on a bench, watching the world around me, my thoughts turned to my child. I had always wanted to give him the best, but now I was realizing that the best wasn't just about what I could provide for him physically. It was about giving him the opportunity to live in a world where he didn't have to struggle, where he could dream and grow without fear. That's what I wanted for him. And in that moment, I knew that I was doing this for him as much as I was doing it for myself. I was interrupted from my thoughts by a familiar voice. I turned to see Dominic walking toward me. He looked the same as always, dressed in a sharp suit, his expression calm and composed. But there was something about the way he looked at me that made my heart skip a beat. "I thought I'd find you here," he said, sitting down next to me. I smiled, feeling a sense of comfort in his presence. "Just needed some air," I replied, trying to sound casual, though I could feel the weight of everything I was feeling. "I understand," he said, his voice soft but steady. "I just wanted to check in and see how you're settling in." "I'm doing okay," I said. "It's a lot to take in, but it's good. I'm finally starting to feel like I can breathe." Dominic nodded, looking out at the park. "I'm glad. You deserve this. You deserve the chance to live without fear." His words hit me harder than I expected. For the first time, I felt like I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living. I was finally taking control of my life. And while it was still uncertain, I felt a sense of hope I hadn't felt in years. "I know this isn't easy," Dominic continued, turning to face me. "But I want you to know that you don't have to do this alone. Whatever you need, I'm here for you." The sincerity in his voice made my heart ache. I didn't know what to say, so I just nodded. I had never imagined a life where someone would care this much about me, where I didn't have to do everything on my own. It was a strange feeling, but it was also a welcome one. "Thank you," I whispered, "for everything." "You don't need to thank me," he said quietly. "This is just the beginning. You have the power to build something better, something that's yours. And I'll be here, every step of the way, to support you." I smiled, feeling a warmth spread through me. It wasn't just the physical warmth of the sun on my skin. It was a deeper warmth, a sense of safety I had never felt before. "Whatever happens next," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "I'll make sure my child has a better life. A life full of possibilities." Dominic's eyes softened, and for a moment, I saw something in him I hadn't noticed before, something that wasn't just power or control, but care. A genuine desire to help me, to help us. "You will," he said, his voice firm and reassuring. "And I'll make sure you have every chance to do so." As we sat there together, I realized something. The future was still uncertain, and I didn't know exactly where this path would lead. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid of the unknown. I was ready to face it, because I knew that with Dominic's support, I wasn't alone. And that made all the difference. I was no longer just surviving. I was living, and I was going to build a future for my child, a future where fear no longer controlled me. I had been living in my new apartment for a few weeks now, and while things were still adjusting, a strange sense of peace had settled over me. The weight of the decision I had made felt lighter with each passing day. I no longer felt trapped by the life I had left behind, and each morning I woke up feeling like I had more control over my own future. I spent my time setting up my space, preparing for the future, and doing what I could to ensure that my child would have the kind of life I had always wanted. To give him one where he wouldn't have to worry about survival, about struggling just to get by. But even with this newfound sense of freedom, there was still a part of me that couldn't fully shake the past. The memories of the mansion, of the life I had once lived, were still fresh. Every now and then, I'd catch myself wondering if I had made the right decision, if I had truly chosen the best path for myself and my child. And every time, I reminded myself that I couldn't go back. That life was behind me now, and I was moving forward. Dominic's presence had faded from my daily life in some ways, but his influence was still there. He had kept his word. He had given me the chance to stand on my own, and though he wasn't constantly checking in on me, I knew that he was still there if I needed him. It wasn't just about him offering me a new life anymore. It was about the quiet promise he had made to help me, to let me find my way. One evening, as I sat on the couch, holding my stomach gently as my baby kicked, I found myself staring at the phone, debating whether or not to reach out to him. It had been a few days since I last saw him, and the uncertainty of the future, of what my next steps should be, weighed heavily on my mind. He had offered me more than just a way out. He had offered me support, a partnership of sorts. But was I ready to lean on him? Was I ready to let someone else in, especially someone like him? The phone in my hand felt heavy, the decision to call or not weighing on me. And yet, as I held it, I realized that I wasn't just calling him for guidance. I was calling him because, deep down, I wanted to hear his voice. The stability and calm I had found in his words was something I hadn't experienced in a long time. I took a deep breath and dialed his number. The phone rang only once before he picked up. Hello. His voice was calm, like always, but there was an underlying warmth that made my chest tighten. Dominic, I started, unsure of how to begin. I just wanted to check in. I've been thinking a lot about what you said about the future. There was a pause on the other end, and I could almost feel him processing my words. How are you doing? He asked, his voice steady but sincere. I'm okay, I said, glancing around the apartment. I'm adjusting. It's still new, but I think I'm starting to feel like this is where I belong. That's good, he replied, and I could hear the quiet pride in his voice. It's a big change, and I know it won't be easy, but I'm glad you're finding your footing. I could hear him shifting on the other end, as though he was about to say something else, but there was a pause before he spoke again. If you ever need anything, don't hesitate to reach out, he said, his tone more serious now. I'm still here, for whatever you need. The words were simple, but they settled deep within me. It was comforting to know that I wasn't alone in this, that the decision I had made wasn't just something I was doing on my own. Dominic had given me the freedom to make my own choices, but he had also shown me that there was strength in asking for help when needed. I'll be okay, I said quietly, my voice steady, but my heart full of gratitude. I just wanted to thank you for everything. There was another long pause before Dominic spoke again. You don't need to thank me. You've done the hard part. Now you're building something for yourself and your child. That's all that matters. His words resonated with me in a way that I hadn't expected. He wasn't just offering me material help or financial support. He was offering me something much more valuable, the encouragement to believe in myself, to trust that I was capable of building the life I wanted. I know it's not easy, he continued, but I want you to understand that what you're doing, what you've already done, is more than enough. I smiled softly to myself, my eyes drifting to the baby blanket I had set up in the corner of the room. I could feel the baby kicking again, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid of the future. I wasn't afraid of what was coming next. I had a choice now, and I was making it. I'll keep moving forward, I said, my voice firm, though it still trembled with emotion. And I won't forget the promise I made to my son. That's all I needed to hear, Dominic said, and I could feel the smile in his voice. We talked for a little while longer, but the conversation felt different now. It wasn't about me seeking permission or validation. It was about moving forward, taking control of my life, and knowing that, no matter what, I had the strength to make it on my own. Dominic had helped me realize that, and for that, I would always be grateful. As we ended the call, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. I was no longer just a maid, no longer just surviving. I was living, and I had the power to shape the future I wanted for myself and my child. I woke up early the next morning, the sun filtering softly through the window, casting long shadows across the apartment. It was quiet, peaceful, but a part of me still felt restless. The decision I had made weighed on me, but it was a weight I had chosen to carry. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was finally living. And I had to admit, there was a sense of relief in that, even if I still didn't know what the future would hold. The days that followed were filled with a mix of excitement and uncertainty. I spent time organizing my new life, making small changes to the apartment, settling in as best as I could. But I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more I was supposed to be doing. A sense that I was still standing at the edge of something bigger, something I wasn't fully ready for, but knew I had to face. Then it happened. Dominic called me again, his voice steady and calm as always. But this time, there was something different in his tone, a sense of urgency I hadn't heard before. "I need to see you," he said, his words clipped. "There's something I want to discuss." I didn't ask questions. I knew better than to question Dominic when he said something like that. His world was unpredictable, and I had learned not to try and anticipate what came next. I agreed to meet him at his office, my mind racing with possibilities. What could he want to discuss now? The life I had started building felt fragile, and any shift, any change in the plan, made me nervous. When I arrived, the familiar coldness of his office greeted me. Dominic was sitting behind his desk, looking more serious than I had ever seen him. He didn't greet me with his usual calm smile, but instead motioned for me to sit across from him. His eyes were dark, focused, and there was a tension in the air I couldn't ignore. "I've been thinking about your situation," he said after a long pause, his voice low but firm. "And I think it's time you took the next step." I blinked, not sure what he meant. "The next step?" "Yes," he said, leaning forward slightly. "You've been living on your own now for a while. You're doing well, but it's time for you to start moving beyond just surviving. It's time for you to make a real change in your life." I wasn't sure if I was ready for what he was suggesting. "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice a little hesitant. Dominic studied me for a moment, as if weighing his words. "You've built a good foundation here, but it's time to take more control. You've been standing on the sidelines, waiting for life to come to you. It's time you started creating what you want for yourself." My heart raced. Was he telling me it was time to leave? To step back into the world I had tried to escape? But no, that wasn't what he meant. I could see it in his eyes. He wasn't asking me to leave this new life behind. He was asking me to step into it fully, to take the reins and shape my future. "But I don't know if I'm ready," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. The fear, the doubt, it all came rushing back to me. The life I had left behind, the uncertainty of the future, it was overwhelming. "I've never done this before." Dominic leaned back in his chair, his gaze steady. "You don't have to do it alone. You never have been alone in this." His words felt like a reassurance I didn't know I needed. I had spent so much time thinking that I had to do everything by myself, that no one could help me, that I had to rely on myself, and myself alone. But Dominic had been there, not just offering me a way out, but offering me a partnership. He had seen potential in me, something I hadn't seen in myself. "I'm here for you," he said again, his voice calm but unwavering. "This is your future, but I'm offering you the chance to shape it, to build something that's yours. You've already started. Now it's time to finish it." I felt a wave of emotion flood over me, and for the first time since I had made the decision to leave, I felt truly confident in what I was doing. I wasn't just doing this for my child, or for anyone else. I was doing it for me. I had the power to make something of my life, to build a future that was truly mine. "I'm ready," I said, my voice firm now. "I want to take the next step." Dominic smiled, and for the first time in a long time, I saw something more than the powerful Mafia boss in his eyes. I saw a man who genuinely cared, who believed in me, and who wanted to see me succeed. "Good," he said. "It's time." And with that, the door to my future finally opened. I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't standing on the sidelines of my own life. I was ready to take control, to make my own choices, and to create the life I had always dreamed of. No more just surviving. It was time to live, and I was ready to start living fully. I stood at the threshold of my new life, looking out over the city that had once felt so overwhelming, so foreign. Now, it seemed full of possibility, full of hope. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow over the apartment, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was exactly where I needed to be. The past few weeks had been a whirlwind, of change, of decisions, of uncertainty, but now, standing here, it all seemed worth it. Every step had brought me closer to this moment, and for the first time, I wasn't afraid to move forward. Dominic had kept his promise. He had given me space, but he had also been there when I needed him. He had shown me a future that wasn't just about surviving, but about truly living. And now, it was time for me to take everything I had learned and apply it to my own future. I wasn't just building a life for myself. I was building a future for my child, a future where we both had a chance to thrive. I had spent so many years feeling invisible, like my worth was determined by how little I could ask for, how little I could expect. But now, I understood that I was worth more than that. I deserved to take up space, to have my voice heard, to make choices that would shape the life I wanted. I had always thought of myself as small, as someone who existed only to serve others. But now, I was learning to see myself as more than that. I was learning to see myself as someone who had the power to create her own future. The first time I truly felt the weight of that power was when I made the decision to visit Dominic's office again. I had been avoiding it, unsure of what would happen when we met again. But I knew I couldn't keep living in the shadows of uncertainty. I had to face it. I had to face him. When I arrived, Dominic wasn't at his desk. He was standing by the large window, looking out at the city. He turned when he heard the door open, his expression unreadable at first. But then, when he saw me, his face softened, and for a moment, I saw the man who had offered me a chance at a new life. He wasn't just the Mafia boss anymore. He was someone who cared about what happened to me. "You came," he said, his voice a little quieter than usual. "I'm here," I replied, my voice steady but full of emotion. Dominic walked toward me, stopping just a few feet away. "I'm proud of you," he said simply. The words hit me harder than I expected. No one had ever said those words to me before, at least not with sincerity. "Thank you," I whispered, my throat tight with emotion. "I know this isn't easy," he continued, his gaze steady. "But you've already come so far. And now, you have the power to take it even further. This is your life. You've earned it." I nodded, my heart swelling with gratitude. "I know." He gave me a small smile. "You're going to do great things. I believe in you." His words were a reminder of everything I had overcome. I had never believed in myself before, but with Dominic's support, I was starting to see what was possible. He wasn't just offering me a life of comfort or security. He was offering me the chance to find my own strength, to stand on my own 2 feet, and build something that was truly mine. I turned to look out the window, the city stretching out before me. There was so much to do, so much to figure out, but for the first time, I didn't feel overwhelmed. I felt ready. I had the tools, the courage, and the support I needed to build the life I wanted. It wasn't going to be easy, but I knew now that I was capable of handling whatever came my way. "I'm ready to take the next step," I said, more to myself than to Dominic, but he heard me. "I know you are," he said, his voice full of quiet pride. "And I'll be here, whenever you need me." I smiled, feeling a sense of peace settle in my chest. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was just surviving. I was living, and I was ready to live fully. The future was still uncertain, but now, it was full of possibility. I wasn't just walking forward. I was running, embracing everything that was coming my way. I had a future to build, a life to create, and I was no longer afraid to face it. I knew I was not alone. I had Dominic's support, and most importantly, I had learned to believe in myself. And with that, I knew my journey was just beginning. Immerse yourself in this gripping tale of change and new beginnings in the world of romance stories. A young woman, caught in a life of survival, finds an unexpected chance at a better future when she meets a powerful man who offers her more than just safety. From the shadows of her past to the light of a new life. This story takes you through the challenges and emotional growth she faces as she begins to trust herself and those who offer her the possibility of a future filled with hope. The connection between her and the man who believes in her potential sparks a journey of transformation that mirrors the best romance stories. This narrative showcases how love, trust, and the courage to embrace change can lead to the life one deserves. Through trials, fears, and hopes, this story shows the power of believing in yourself and the relationships that can change your life. If you are a fan of compelling romance stories that highlight personal growth and deep emotional connections, this journey will captivate your heart. Discover how self-doubt transforms into confidence and how love becomes a force that shapes destinies in this moving romance. For those who enjoy tales where love and life change intertwine, these romance stories are a must-read.